Hello, and welcome to this episode of Elements of Chemistry. Today we're going to talk about doing math with scientific notation. This is a topic that a lot of students struggle with because you've got to take some time to learn your calculator and how your calculator works. Practice and trial and error is the key. Each calculator is different. So I can't say this is the exact keystrokes you're going to use. You've got to figure out your calculator. I personally use a TI-84, looks like this. I don't know if you can see it. Um, it's just sort of a basic calculator. Um, Mine has an EE button. Yours may have an EXP button, or you may have a caret button that you use to raise an exponent. The key here is to make sure you don't add an extra 10. Because if I'm going to enter this in my calculator, to enter 2.96 times 10 to the minus 3, I would key in 2 decimal point 9 6, and then I would press the EXP or EE button, and then I would use the change sign button, not the plus or the minus button, but the change sign button if I needed to make it a negative and put in a 3. Notice if I'm using an EXP or EE button, I'm not adding that 10. EE or EXP stands for times 10 to what power do you want? Now, if you don't have these keys, it's really important that you use parentheses. So you're going to put in a parentheses 2.96 times 10 caret, that up arrow, your plus or minus, if you need a negative sign, and then close the parentheses. If you don't open and close parentheses, you're going to get an order of operations error. So the key here is to try a couple of really simple calculations first to get the hang of how your buttons work. If you're trying to do 6 times 10 to the second power divided by 2, on my calculator, I put 6. I'd press that blue second button. I'd press the EE button, which says times 10 to the, and my screen would show me an exponent, and I would then put in a 2. If you don't have that, remember, you've got to use parentheses to keep that scientific notation together as a group, because otherwise, mathematically, this is going to be 6 divided by 2 times 10 to the second, which could give you a slightly different answer. Okay, so make sure that you do not add that extra 10. We did not see this mistake in this problem, but it's common error to use a subtraction sign instead of that plus minus to indicate a negative. When you double check the manual or look at a YouTube video on your specific calculator on how to do it, or check with your math teacher and say, hey, this is the calculator I have. How do I put this in? And your math teacher would probably be more than happy to help you with that. But that is a key to doing math. And if you know the rules for scientific notation, this will be much, much easier for you. So when you're adding or subtracting numbers in notation, it's a lot easier to let the calculator do the work, but you can do this by hand. If I'm going to take two numbers, I can just take them back, write them in expanded form, and add or subtract them like normal. Well, that's kind of slow. But I could. I could take 1 times 10 to the 6, be 1, and then 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus 2 times 10 to the 5th. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and just add these numbers together. Or we can write them in improper form to show that they both have the same exponent. In improper form, 1 times 10 to the 6th would be the same thing as 10 times 10 to the 5th. And then 2.30 times 10 to the 5th. And add them together like normal. Slow and tedious, but you can use a calculator. And here we're going to place parentheses around the scientific notation. because this is then going to make the order, keep our order of operations intact. And this is by far the easiest method. I would put in on my calculator, 1. I would press second EE for mine, and my calculator screen is going to give me a 1 with an E and a flashing cursor. And I'm just going to put in a 6 plus 2.30, the second EE, got an E with a flashing cursor, 5. And this is going to give me 1,230,000. Nice and fast. I could take this back to scientific notation. You have another really cool button on your calculator, hopefully. It's called a mode button. And if you press your mode button, you're going to see a screen that's going to tell you what functions. And you're going to have a normal, an SCI, or an ENG. If you arrow over and lock it in SCI, it's going to give you all of your answers in scientific notation. And this one comes out to be 1.23 times 10 to the 6. So let's try some together. Here we're going to have 4.5 times 10 to the third, and hopefully you're doing this with your calculator because we've got to do these together, minus 2.3 times 10 to the second. That one's going to give me 4,270. Or if I was using my calculator in the mode scientific notation, I would have 4.27 times 10 to the third power. Please be checking this with your calculator. The only way to do these is understanding and knowing your individual calculator. Our next one, we have 3.4 times 10 to the fifth, 10 to the fifth, get that in my calculator correctly, plus 4.5 times 10 to the fourth, this one here is going to give me 385,000. So 385,000 or 3.85 times 10 to the fifth. Our next one, 4.26 times 10. And this one, I've got an exponent. I need a negative. So I'm going to use that change sign. For me on my calculator, the change sign is at the bottom of the number keypad. Mine's actually right below the number 3. I'm going to put in a -2 minus 2.31, -1. And on these negative ones, these really do visually look better in your calculator to see if you're doing it right if you do put the parentheses in, but they're not always necessary. This is going to give me a negative 0.1884 or a negative 1.884 times 10 to the -1. Adding and subtracting are much harder than multiplication and dividing. And these are the more common operations you're going to see in a science course. And they're far easier. And parentheses make them almost foolproof. And the nice thing is these can also be broken down. We've got 1.00 times 2.30. And then when we're multiplying, you'll notice we add the exponents. And when we divide, we subtract the exponents. Pretty easy. So these you can actually do in pieces. I can take the 1.00, I can multiply it by 2.30, which is going to give me 2.3, and then 6 plus 3 is 9 times 10 to the ninth. Or we can plug it in our calculator. For dividing, we're going to subtract the exponents. So a 10 to the 6 minus a 10 to the 10, a 6 minus 3 is going to be a 3 exponent. And especially if you're doing multiple choice, you don't even have to touch your calculator usually. You can just basically figure it out. So we're going to have 1.00 times 10 to the sixth divide by 2.30 times 10 to the third. And I get 434. And there's going to be a lot of extra digits here, so we're going to have to figure out where to round it. Um, I've got 3 digits, so I'm going to keep it at 3 digits. So this is going to round to a 5. If we were doing it the slow way, 1.0 divided by 2.30, this is going to give me 0.43, still rounding, 5 times 10 to the third power. 6 minus 3 is 3. That means that we're going to move the decimal over 3, so 435. Let's try some more of these together. So we can decide, are we going to do it with the parentheses and the exponent or with the caret button, depending on what your calculator has. And please look at what I'm getting as my answer and checking to make sure that you can figure out the keystrokes. You can pause this video at any time to check and play with your calculator until you figure out which is your correct keystrokes. Got two, so I'm going to round this one to 2. This one's going to give me approximately 15. 2.345 times 10 to the second power times 4.56 times 10 to the fifth power. And always go back and look at your screen. For me, it's really easy to not hit that second button clearly, and then I get into a list function, which then throws me an error. This one's going to give me a huge number. But I'm going to round it to 3 places. So that's going to be 107. And I'm going to fill in the rest of the places with zeros because of rounding. And we'll explain how to correctly round when we get to our significant figures. So now it's time to test yourself. You can pause the video and work through and try these, and then we're going to go back and check them all. Okay, hopefully you've done all of these. So let's go ahead and see what our answers come out to be. We have 3.4 times 10 to the third power, subtracting 2.1 times 10 to the fourth power. This is going to give me a negative 17,600. Or if we were doing this in scientific notation, this would give me a negative 1.76 times 10 to the fourth power. And I tend to like the scientific notation. And once again, you'll find out in the next video why, because of significant figures. Okay, 7.89 times 10 to the fifth. And we are adding 6.25 times 10 to the second power. 1.96 times 10 to the fourth. We are subtracting 1.25 times 10 to the third. This one's going to give me 18,350 or 1.835 times 10 to the fourth power. 6.022 times 10 to the negative 19. Oops. This one's going to give me 1.2044 times 10 to the minus 18. And we're not even going to put that in an expanded form because that's going to have so many zeros in front of it. 1.45, once you figure out your calculator, these go really, really fast. Divided by 1 times 10 to the third. So we're dividing by 1,000. This one should give you 14,500. 6.26 times 10 to the 15th, that's a big number, plus 3.45 times 10 to the 14th, another really big number. This is where you could have easily made a calculator mistake. 3,000 times 1.25 times 10 to the third. 3,750,000. Okay, now here's one that's got an order of operations. Remember, by order of operations, we've got to do this division first, then multiply by 5. Remember, PEMDAS, parentheses, comes first. So 1.25 times 10 to the third, divide by 3.2 times 10 to the third. We're going to multiply that all by 5. We're going to get 1.953125. Our favorite number in chemistry, Avogadro's number. It's the number of atoms, particles, or whatever in the counting unit, the mole. And that's one that you'll just like almost finger memory. So 3 moles here, because we're multiplying it by 3. So 2.0073 repeating times 10 to the 23rd. We have a division. So remember, when you divide, you're actually subtracting our exponents. So we could have rewritten that as 2 divided by 4 times 10 to the 3 minus negative 3. But if you've got a calculator, it's just as easy to do it in a calculator. So 2 times 10 to the third divided by 4 times 10 to the negative 3. And we get 5. There you go. I hope you got all these correct. Remember, once again, the key to these problems is learning how your calculator works. For some reason, they didn't standardize this between different brands of calculators, whether you're using a Desmos calculator on your Chromebook, if you're using the calculator on your phone. And remember, most phones, you get a standard 4-function calculator if you hold it vertically. If you turn it horizontally, you'll get a scientific calculator. Pretty cool. And that one usually does have the exponents. Um, take- so it's just one of those things you're going to have to figure out your calculator, unfortunately. But I hope this video kind of gave you a little brief help on doing some math with scientific notation. Remember, stay curious, be safe, be kind. Have a wonderful day.